The first crack in my marriage showed up in a brokerage alert, while I was standing on the 12th floor of a half-finished building in downtown Chicago, looking at a concrete support column that had started to show tiny spreading cracks under the paint. That was my job. I supervised building inspectors for the city. In simple terms, my team made sure buildings were safe, legal, and not lying to the people inside them. We checked structure, fire exits, weight-bearing walls, permit work, and the kind of details rich men love to hide behind drywall and polished renderings. If a building was bending where it should have been holding, we found it. If a developer cut corners, we wrote it down. If a property looked polished from the street but dangerous underneath, my name was one of the names standing between that lie and a tragedy. By 38, I had worked my way from a trainee in a hard hat to senior supervisor. I was not born soft enough to think titles made a man, but I respected what mine meant. People listened when I spoke. Contractors straightened their backs when I arrived. And because I had grown up on the wrong end of too many promises, I trusted what held pressure more than what sounded good. That morning I was in a tower-off whacker, where a developer kept insisting the hairline fracture was cosmetic. Cosmetic is one of those words people use when they want you to stop asking questions. It means they are trying to call damage just a surface problem, when they do not want to deal with what is underneath. My phone buzzed in my pocket while I was still staring at the crack. I stepped back from the column, pulled off one glove and looked down. An alert from my quiet account. That was the boring account. The safe one. The place where I parked extra money, tax reserves, and the kind of savings a man builds because nobody is coming to rescue him if he gets sentimental and sloppy. The alert said $42,000 had just been used to buy short-dated options in a building materials company I had never once traded. I read it twice, then a third time. For people who do not speak market language, options are basically side bets on whether a stock will move fast. Done carefully, they are speculation. Done carelessly, they are fire. I had not placed that trade, and I knew exactly one person in my life who might have had both the nerve and the technical access to touch that account. My wife, Beatrice. Beatrice handled wealth management for a private brokerage in the Loop. Not a loud TV kind of finance woman. A polished one, good suits, quiet watch. Perfect nails, clean language. She could explain money in a way that made people feel safe while handing over more of it than they ever meant to. When I met her 9 years earlier, she looked at me the way ambitious women look at men they think might become something worth standing beside. At the time, I admired that. Later, I learned admiration and appetite can wear the same face. She was 36, beautiful without needing to ask for it. Career-focused, social in a proper way. The kind of woman who could host a dinner for city people, finance people, and real estate people in the same dining room and make each one feel like the evening had tilted slightly in their favor. From the outside, we looked busy but loyal. From the inside, I found out we were only well-managed. Before I tell you how one wrong account trade turned into a burner phone, a fake consultant, and a hotel lot full of consequences, subscribe to Reddit Ride. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more stories where quiet men stop getting underestimated. I called Beatrice from the unfinished floor. She answered on the second ring. Hey, love. I'm in between client calls. There's a trade in my reserve account. Silence for half a beat. Then she gave a light little laugh I had heard at dinners, donor boards, and rooftop receptions. That's probably a sync issue, she said. Those alerts lag all the time, too fast, too smooth. He did not ask which account. She did not ask what company. She did not ask how much. She went straight to explanation. That was the first real clue, not proof, clue. I looked back at the cracked column in front of me and thought something I would repeat to myself a lot over the next 3 weeks. Real damage almost always introduces itself politely. I finished the inspection because men like me do not get to collapse in real time. I wrote the violation. I photographed the fracture. I told the developer he could call it cosmetic after he hired an engineer willing to put his own license behind that word. Then I got in my city SUV, parked under the shadow of a loading dock, and logged into the account. The trade was real, $42,000, manual entry, same-day expiration. And the company was Harbor Mason Technologies, a boring materials name to most people. To me, it was the exact kind of company that could jump fast if private information about a huge city redevelopment package reached the wrong ears. My ears, for example. The city was preparing a major redevelopment corridor on the west side. I was not in the political center of it, but my office saw early permit flows, inspection escalations, zoning compliance issues, and structural readiness flags before the public saw the polished press release. In plain English, that meant I sometimes saw signs of big city projects before regular people did. I did not gossip about those things because my job could get ugly if I did, and because men raised the way I was raised understand that privileged information is just trust wearing steel-toed boots. Beatrice knew that too, or should have. I pulled the order trail. The device ID was not mine. The access path came through her firm. That did not yet prove she made it, but it proved the lie had already touched the edges of her profession, which was worse in a cleaner way. That night she came home at 7:18 wearing a charcoal suit and the scent of expensive lobby air. She kissed my cheek. Long day. I looked at her. She had one of those faces that warmed a room before it said anything. But warmth can be architecture too. It can be built. Long enough, I said. I asked if she wanted wine. She said yes. Then, while she stood at the island scrolling through something on her phone, she said, I might have to run out for an hour tomorrow. Client reallocation drama. That would have sounded normal a week earlier. Instead it felt preloaded. Downtown, I asked. No, Oak Brook, too quick. I nodded and handed her a glass. We ate salmon and green beans and talked about nothing. She mentioned a couple wanting to move tax-advantaged money before quarter end. She asked whether one of my inspectors ever came back from leave. She laughed when I told her a contractor had tried to convince me exposed steel bars added industrial charm. If you have never lived through betrayal, you might think liars tremble more. Most do not. That is part of why it works. The next morning, I looked through the last 5 months of the quiet account before I left for work. 3 internal transfers I had not authorized. Small at first. 8,000, 9,000, 12,000. Each moved back within days, like someone had borrowed my money to cover something temporary, then repaired the wound before I noticed the blood. That pattern felt familiar in a bad way. It felt like a leak somebody had been mopping before I got home. By lunch, I had already done 2 things I never thought I would do in my marriage. I had started an evidence folder, and I had stopped giving her the benefit of being tired, misunderstood, or merely stressed. On Thursday, I followed one of her stories. She said she was headed to Oak Brook for that client reallocation. Reallocation just means moving money around from one investment bucket to another. Safe to aggressive, aggressive to safe, stocks to bonds, cash to whatever polished story they were selling this quarter. Instead of Oak Brook, her car app showed a stop near River North, then another near a hotel club garage. Then, 43 minutes later, a coffee shop 2 blocks away where no one with a real client meeting would bother going unless they needed cover time. When she got home, she said the client ran long and traffic was stupid. I said, which tower was it again? She blinked. The Northbrook office. She had already forgotten the first lie. Oak Brook had become Northbrook in less than a day. That was when the street in me sat up. People talk about intuition like it's mystical. It is not. Most of the time, it is just pattern recognition, collecting enough unpaid bills to finally kick down the door. The hard proof came from a charger cable. She left her work tote in the mudroom Saturday while getting changed for a charity dinner. I was looking for a USB-C cable because mine had vanished into the usual house mess, and her tote usually had 3 because finance people carry chargers the way mechanics carry sockets. Inside the tote was the cable. Under the cable was a cheap black phone. No case, no wallpaper, no password, a burner. I stood there with the thing in my hand and felt my jaw lock so hard I had to unclench it manually. That insulted me more than the cheating. A second phone is planning. It is a person waking up and choosing infrastructure for betrayal. I opened it. The main thread sat at the top. His name was Shane Mercer. I knew the name immediately and nearly laughed out loud from the ugliness of it. Shane Mercer was not a powerful developer, not a private equity predator, not a rival I could respect. He was one of those glossy, finance-adjacent parasites who floated around Chicago real estate events, pretending to understand capital structure because he owned 2 good jackets and a podcast microphone. He moderated panels nobody serious attended. He posted photos from borrowed conference rooms. He drove a leased car and called it a fleet. My wife was not only cheating. She was cheating with him, and worse, from the message thread she was helping him. At first, the messages were emotional. I hate how unseen I feel. You get me in a way he doesn't. He's good, Shane, but good can feel heavy. That line stayed in my chest like grit. Then the messages got practical. Parking instructions, room numbers, garage levels, and then money. I can float you until next week. Use the Harbor Mason play if you're brave. Don't be stupid with the amount. The room went absolutely still around me. Harbor Mason. The exact same materials company in the wrong account trade. I sat on the mudroom bench and read the thread from the beginning. It went back 11 months. 11 months of hotel rooms, work-adjacent social events, private lunch lies, and little transfers designed to keep one fragile man looking successful while my wife funded the fantasy. That was bad enough. Then I found the other layer. Shane kept asking about city redevelopment chatter. Not direct document dumps, not movie villain language. That almost would have been easier. No, he asked the way weak men always ask, sideways. Anything moving west side? How soon do those permits go public? Is that materials rumor real or just contractor gossip? And Beatrice, overconfident and wanting to feel important, answered enough to matter. Not in clean criminal paragraphs. In tone. In timing. In you didn't hear this from me, but in if you're going to make the trade, do it before Friday. That was the moment the affair stopped being only marital. It became legal. I photographed everything. Then I put the burner phone back exactly where it had been. That night Beatrice stood in our kitchen in a black dress, one earring in, one earring out, asking whether I thought the shorter necklace looked better for the gala. You look good in either, I said. I meant it. That is part of what makes betrayal so physically ugly. The body keeps remembering the wife, while the mind is learning the stranger. I met with a divorce attorney Monday morning and an ethics lawyer Monday afternoon. The divorce attorney talked about assets, timeline, and protecting the house and accounts. The ethics lawyer talked about information misuse, trade timing, regulator exposure, and how important it was that I had documented what I found without tampering with anything or confronting her too early. It was the kind of day that makes a man realize adulthood is mostly just learning how to carry paperwork when you would rather carry a bat. I carried the paperwork. Over the next 6 days I prepared. I separated what money I could legally separate. I documented the transfers. I handed over screenshots and timestamps to the lawyer. And I let Beatrice keep thinking she was still narrating the room. During that week she was almost tender. That was the part I hated most. She brought me coffee before I left Wednesday. She touched my tie not Friday. She asked Saturday night if I thought we should maybe finally take a long weekend in Michigan and just breathe. Liars get affectionate when the floor starts moving under them, even if they do not know why. The confrontation happened at a hotel reception for a regional development awards program on a Thursday night. Work adjacent, public enough to matter, controlled enough to avoid chaos. Shane was moderating a panel before the reception, which felt so ridiculous that even now it almost makes me smile. Beatrice wore dark green silk and looked expensive. Shane wore cream tailoring and looked borrowed. I waited until the panel ended, and the ballroom relaxed into drinks, cards, and self-congratulation. Then I walked to Beatrice's side and said, "I need you in the corridor." Now she looked at me and knew instantly that something had changed. Not everything, just enough. We stepped into a side hall lined with framed architectural renderings and fake confidence. Warm ballroom light spilled through the doors behind us. At the far end, a city skyline glowed through narrow windows. On the table beside the wall sat 2 envelopes. One cream, one blue. She saw them. "What is this?" I picked up the blue one first. "The end of your version." I handed it to her. Inside were screenshots. The wrong account trade. The Harbor Mason references. The transfers. The burner phone messages. The hotel receipts. The timeline. The initial separation papers. She opened the first few pages and went pale fast. Not movie pale. Worse. The kind of pale that shows up when a person realizes charm has already missed its chance. "Fred, no," her eyes flashed. "You went through my bag. You went through my life. That landed clean." She looked toward the ballroom doors. Of course she did. Image first. Always not here, she whispered. I kept my voice even. I'm the only reason this is still quiet. Her breathing changed. This is not what you think. I almost smiled. That sentence only works when the documents are weak. She flipped faster now. I watched the exact moment she hit Harbor Mason and understood the affair had not remained private damage. That was what truly terrified her. Not the hotel, not the sex. The trade, the leak, the legal part, the part that outlived romance. I asked the only question that mattered least and still hurt most. Did you love him? She shut her eyes. That was answer enough. Then I asked the one that mattered more. How much did you tell him? Not much. That is not a number. Tears rose instantly, but tears are not truth. I never thought. I know. Thinking was never the strong part of this. That broke her composure. Not loudly, just enough. He was in trouble, she said. He needed a bridge. It started as advice, then money, then. I held up a hand. Do not turn weakness into poetry for me. She covered her mouth. I had never spoken to her like that in my life. That was the point. Women like Beatrice do not always fear anger. They fear clean certainty. Then Shane walked into the corridor. Of course he did. He stopped when he saw us, read the envelopes, and felt the temperature instantly. What's going on? He asked. His voice was still trying to be smooth. I handed him the cream envelope. Your part. He did not want to take it. I waited. He took it. Inside was a notice from counsel demanding preservation of communications and advising him to retain representation. No threats, no drama, just legal language, the sound fantasy makes when it discovers real adults are in the room. He read the top page, and all the color left his face. It was beautiful. Beatrice saw it too. That was when the real humiliation arrived for her. Not that I knew. That the man she had floated, funded, and endangered us for was suddenly too small to stand upright inside consequence. Shane looked at her, then at me, then toward the ballroom. Cowards always glance toward witnesses before they decide what kind of man they will pretend to be. I think I should go, he said. Exactly. There he was, the center of 11 months, the man she could not stop choosing. And the first real thing he chose was the exit. Beatrice whispered his name. He did not answer it with his body. He just backed away, folded the cream envelope, and walked. That was the affair's funeral. Not the sex, not the messages. Him leaving her in a corridor the second the cost became real. She stared after him, and I watched something in her finally lose the argument. Not love, delusion. What happens now? She asked. I gave her the cleanest answer I had. You go back in there if you want. Smile if you can. Protect the image you kept choosing. Tomorrow you talk to your lawyer. Tonight you do not come home. She looked up sharply. You can't do this like that. I almost laughed. I can do it exactly like this. Quietly, on paper, like an adult, she cried then. Actually cried, not prettily, not strategically. And because some part of me had once loved her for real, it still hurt to watch. That is the part nobody tells you. Masculinity is not numbness. It is control in the presence of feeling, not the absence of it. I was lonely, she said. I believe you, she looked surprised. Then I went on. Lonely people can tell the truth. That finished it. I handed her the final page. Do not call me after midnight, pretending clarity showed up with tears. Then I turned and walked back through the ballroom. I did not make a scene. I shook one hand, nodded to 2 developers, told a lender I'd call him in the morning. Then I took my coat and left. The Chicago River looked black and metallic that night, the way it does when the city lights are trying too hard. I stood outside the hotel for a moment and let the cold air hit my face. My phone buzzed before I even reached the car. Beatrice, then again, then again. I turned it over and kept walking. The legal part was uglier and quieter than most people imagine. No screaming, no throne wine, just depositions, statements, financial tracing, and 2 kinds of attorneys billing for different versions of betrayal. Beatrice was not charged criminally in the end. Shane came out worse publicly than she did. His little real estate media life collapsed the second serious people understood. He had been trading around private redevelopment chatter and living on someone else's money. My marriage died cleaner than his reputation did. That gave me no joy, or not much, because by then revenge had changed shape for me. At first I wanted humiliation, then I wanted order, and eventually I wanted distance. I rented a condo in Old Town for a year and learned how quiet a place can feel when nobody in it is managing an angle. I worked. I ran by the lake. I bought furniture for function instead of impression. I stopped attending every event my old life would have treated like obligation. I started sleeping without clenching my jaw. Before I tell you how this ended, like, comment and subscribe to Reddit Ride. It helps the channel grow, and stories like this deserve an audience that understands the difference between noise and strength. About 14 months later, I bought a brick 3-flat on the north side with good bones and bad paint. That appealed to me. Good bones and bad paint is easier to trust than polished surfaces hiding rot. I renovated the owner's unit myself in stages, not with my hands alone, but with the steady oversight of a man who finally understood that peace is also a kind of structure. New floors, better light, clean lines, real locks, no unnecessary softness. Nothing in the place felt borrowed from the marriage. One evening, while looking over contractor paperwork at the kitchen counter, I found the original printout of that first wrong account alert in an old folder. I stood there holding it and realized I felt something I had not expected. Gratitude not for the betrayal or the mistake. If she had not hit the wrong account, she might have gone on underestimating me for years. She might have kept funding noise with my silence. She might have kept mistaking a quiet man for a blind one. Instead, she made one reckless move in the only place I never ignore. The numbers, and men like me live a long time by respecting first cracks. We do not always make speeches when we find them. We just stop calling them cosmetic, and we rebuild what is worth saving.